So Bill, go ahead and put Sailor's photo up so we can see who we're talking to. And there is Sailor.
Got a very Indiana Jones vibe going on there, don't I?
Now, you were saying that in the course of this meeting, you would like us to talk about another name and something else you do under this name, and we'd be happy to hear about that.
Oh no, it's just Peter G is my professional name. Sailor Poland is my handle on Facebook. Peter G is what I'm generally known for. Back when I was writing for Bleeding Cool, when I was doing the Stress Puppy comic strip, and it's just been my handle all through my life. So yeah, the only alternate identity, I guess, would be the Sailor Poland handle. What happened was I had a professional page on Facebook, and a bunch of my friends had gone to Facebook to form a group. But a professional page can't join groups or anything like that. And they said, well, can you make a new page? And I needed at least some kind of a handle that I could go with. And I'm a huge fan of Sailor Moon, and yeah, I am a Moonie. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm very proud of my Polish heritage. So I just cooked up Sailor Poland, and that became what I was known as on Facebook.
Excellent.
And that also, yeah, well, that was kind of, it's weird because that's also kind of how the movie got started, the Sailor Poland movie that I made, because one of the people in the group who hadn't met me before I joined, and she was like, well, what would Sailor Poland look like? And I did a quick sketch of what I envisioned her being, which is, you know, an action pose with her holding a giant two-handed buster sword. And I said, here, this is what she would look like. And everybody thought it was great. And I started thinking to myself, because when I was doing test art for it, I just wanted to do a few images because I thought the character was fun. And then I started drawing images of, because this was shortly into the Trump presidency, of Donald Trump menacing her. And I started thinking, you know, I think I have an idea for a story here. And I started developing it. And when lockdown hit and everyone needed something to do, I decided I'm going to make myself an animated movie about Sailor Poland and how basically every country in the world has a personification. And one day everybody wakes up and Sailor America has been replaced with this big orange guy. And Sailor Poland, because of the shared history between America and Poland, is off to try and find her friend and bring her back before the city. It ruins everything. Spoiler alert,
Excellent.
my politics lean hard left.
I think that's with a lot of us here. But okay, you were talking about your other images, and I know that Bill has loaded several of your images here, and if we could look at those and talk about them, we'd be really happy to see them.
Okay, the one that's up right now, that was a movie poster that because I originally thought that I'd have the movie done by Christmas of that year when I started it, and it went off the rails really bad. But yeah, that was the teaser poster. What had happened was that I'm an avid political watcher, and if you see the Sailor Poland movie, you see that I have a lot of metaphors for things that were going on at the time in there. And while I was working on it, that was when Trump was running against Biden, and it was looking like Trump was going to win. And because if you look at the vote totals, yeah, Biden may have won by a comfortable margin into the Electoral College. But if you look at the actual numbers of the popular vote, it was too close for comfort. And I actually was afraid that Trump had actually won before the final votes were counted. So I was holding off on finishing the movie because I didn't know what was going to happen next. I had actually written a second ending for it. And then we went into everything with the insurrection on January 6th. My girlfriend passed from the virus 2 days later. And then we had all the stuff with the fake elector drama. And by the end of it, it was earlier this year or last year. And I was like, I really need to wrap this thing up because I hate leaving things uncompleted. And I managed to figure out a way to come up with a third ending that actually worked. I called it my Star Trek ending because it ends on a feeling of hope and optimism. It's like, yes, there's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of fears about the future. But at least in this moment, something good was accomplished that can be built on. And I managed to get it done and out finally. But yeah, it was held up because of just all the real world events, because this guy couldn't, just lie through his teeth and people buy it. my parents live in Florida, and they're constantly going on about Trump, and there's a reason why. I'll do the thing where I hit mute on the phone, and I'll be like surfing the internet while they just go on and on. So, there will be a sequel to Sailor Poland. It's just I'm waiting to see what happens with the situation in Russia with Putin because of all the rumors about his bad health. And of course, now that the Heritage Foundation is making its push, it's like, oh, this could be fodder, but I want to wait and see what shakes out because this is a scary time to be alive in.
I'll tell you what, when you have taken us down through all of your images, if you could maybe tell us some website links, and then Bill could help navigate through those when we take a look at those. But let's take a look at these art files that you loaded to Bill so that we could see them. The actual images is what we're looking for, Bill. There we go. And here's a lady.
Okay, that's Ask Blanche. What happened was a few years ago, there's a radio station in Chicago, WDRV, The Drive. They do classic rock. And during lockdown on Wednesdays, they started this joke series called Ask Blanche, where one of the DJs does her voice. Blanche Horowitz, who works in their collections department, pops in and reads someone's letter on the air and offers her advice. And I started animating a few of the bits for them, and it got some attention. And I've been trying to get back into it, but just things have gotten in the way. But yeah, it's a comedy advice column type thing with a very rambunctious woman, and the other DJ just playing the straight man to what's going on, and it gets quite fun.
That's great. Bill, can I ask you real quick? You see these other files, you might want to close them so that we can really concentrate on all this wonderful art.
Yeah, that's it.
Here we go. Excellent. Now we can really see what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Ask Blanche cartoons were interesting because the style that you saw in the Sailor Poland images, that's my usual style that I developed. And for Ask Blanche, I wanted something that felt more like a Jay Ward cartoon. So I was leaning heavily on model sheets and references to draw that. It worked out well, but it's so outside my usual area. It's the UPA style that it took a bit of work, but I think that it was totally worth it to do. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm a great Bullwinkle fan, and I think you quite succeeded.
Thank you. Hearing that from a true fan is a compliment you would not believe how wonderful it makes me feel. I always loved Jay Ward. I always thought it was so funny when Walt Disney's Buena Vista Television got the rights to distribute the home videos of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I still remember the Fractured Fairy Tale that basically just took a massive dump on Walt Disney with Sleeping Beauty. I'm like, somebody wasn't watching the show.
And they got their hands on Hans Conrad, which of course was Captain Hook. So he was always delicious.
We need more cartoons like Jay Ward in the world. There's not enough of them anymore.
Oh, I think there's plenty of us. If you go to the Zine Fest and things like that, you get a lot of people drawing them in comic books.
Yeah, I cut my teeth on indie comics. I basically started getting into comics during the black and white boom. I was not somebody who read comics as a kid, and I started reading them around 1986. I found a copy of the Sledgehammer comic book at the grocery store. And then from there, I picked up the Star Trek Next Gen miniseries. And then I discovered my first comic book shop, and I was just hooked.
Oh, so you really went into it starting a comic book shop.
Yeah, no, I didn't start one. I just found one. And that was when all my horizons opened. I discovered Eastman Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I absolutely loved. I discovered people like Steve Purcell with Sam and Max. I tend to spend more time in the indie section because the Marvel and the DC output just didn't interest me that much. All the artwork was done in a specific way. There was a house style. The stories were formulaic. I wasn't really into it. Meanwhile, over in the indie section, you had people like Stan Sakai with the Saga Jimbo telling fantastic stories. And it's like, this is what I want to read. And it even got to the point where whenever I walked in, the guy behind the counter knew that if he had some strange offbeat thing, he would keep a copy behind it. And hey, have you ever heard of a guy named Rick Beach who did this comic called Brat Pack? No, let me check it out. In fact, Brat Pack is the reason that I'm not a big fan of Watchmen. I had read Brat Pack before I ever read Watchmen. So when everybody's like, "Oh, Watchmen is such a seminal work, it deconstructs superheroes, and it'll change your mind," I'm like, I've already seen that, and I've seen it done better. Brat Pack, as far as I'm concerned, no offense to Alan Moore, he's a great writer, but Watchmen, I felt, didn't hold a candle to what Beach was doing with Brat Pack.
Well, I think the indie comics spent a lot of time deconstructing everything, which is half the fun. Can we see your next piece of artwork there? Because you got a lot of good stuff here. Bill, you want to run down there and see the next one?
Oh yeah, the Brown Hornet, spelled with a W. That yeah, I was not very nice to Bill Cosby. What happened was with that one, it was the day that Bill Cosby got sprung from prison on a technicality. They had apparently his testimony, he had given testimony in exchange for not being prosecuted, and they used that to get him out. On the bright side, as soon as he got out, he wasn't going blind anymore. So it's a miracle cure. And I was very incised. I thought it was a travesty of justice. I was furious. And then one day I wake up and I go, "Pete, don't get mad about it. Make fun of it." So I started coming up with this whole thing based on the old Brown Hornet cartoons. Interestingly enough, Paul Dini from Batman used to be one of the writers of the Brown Hornet bits. Just a little trivia for you there. And I went out of my way to try and mimic the Filmation style with the artwork and the character designs. I changed them enough so this way no one could sue me over it. That was not easy given how minimalist it was. But I did that and basically just no holds barred, just all guns blazing on Bill Cosby and the whole thing. And I got a lot of compliments for it. There were some people who expressed some concern initially because they felt that I was drawing in blackface, and it's like, that's offensive. I'm like, no, in order for the joke to work, it has to resemble the original Brown Hornet cartoons. So I have to do it this way. And because any other art style would have just ruined it. It needs that innocence that people thought Bill Cosby had at the time, especially with him being America's favorite dad. I used to work on a riverboat casino, and one time Bill Cosby had come on the boat. Oh no, nothing will crush your faith in humanity like working in a casino. I mean, the riverboats at the time, they wanted gambling, but they didn't want gambling. So the boats had to go out for a 2-hour cruise. So they would be docked for a half hour to let people off. They'd let people on for a half hour, then they'd go for 2 hours. Doors open. This woman gets on because I was working as a cashier. She bought $500 in dollar tokens, and she sat at the machines right across from my cage. Went through them all. Went up, bought another one and another one. Then she bought like 200 something because she didn't have enough for a full can of the dollar tokens. Then she maxed out every credit card. She wrote out the maximum number of checks. She took out markers and completely destroyed herself financially. Now, here's the kicker. She did all this in the half hour before the boat left. In a half hour, she literally completely destroyed her life. And the casino is like, well, it's our money now. So, yeah, I do not recommend working in a casino because it will kill you inside. I didn't have the bald spot until I started working at the casino.
Did you meet Cosby at the casino?
No, but a friend of mine who worked in customer relations did, and she said that when they were the higher ups, like the bosses, he was nice, but anyone who wasn't a high authority there, he just treated like dirt. He would glare at them, he'd yell at them for things, and just treat them horribly. So I've known for a long time that Bill Cosby is not the nice, funny dad that everyone thinks he is. And seeing all this is just like, well, I'm not the kind of guy to say I told you so, but I told you so.
Bill, you got the next start? We need the next start, Bill. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, Doctor Who's. This actually ran on Bleeding Cool back when I was writing for them. What happened was I'm a fan of My Little Pony, the Friendship is Magic series. Well, okay, I'm a fan of the first couple of years. After that, when Lauren Faust, the creator, and Lauren Faust, she's a genius animator. If you want to see more of her stuff, she's doing. She took over the DC Superhero Girls cartoon, and she knows how to time a joke and make compelling characters. And what happened was back when the show first started, there was a pony who had an hourglass symbol on his flank, his cutie mark. and someone made a joke about My Little Time Lord and Doctor Who's and Gallifrey, and it became this whole thing in the fandom where people were writing Doctor Who stories. And I thought, well, that looks like fun, and so I decided to jump onto it, and I wrote 3 stories about it. And this one actually ran on Bleeding Cool, Night of the Living Doll. My approach was a little different from everyone else. They have tried to establish Doctor Who's as an actual character on the show, but they do it as, well, not quite, because they tend to do it more as a comedy bit, and we have dopey doctors, but he's just a little too dopey. I was trying to do it more like an actual Doctor Who story, which is, about things that go bump in the night. It's about things that make you nervous or scared. And that was what I was trying to do with Night of the Living Doll. And so my approach was a little bit different, but it certainly got a lot of fan attention, and a lot of people did enjoy it. It's a shame that it had to end, because the show people had moved on. It was no longer as big as it was. And by that point, Bleeding Cool didn't want me back. They don't like it when I talk about that. Bleeding Cool, when I posted on LinkedIn that I was no longer with Bleeding Cool, I actually got an angry message from one of the staffers saying I shouldn't have said that, and I basically ruined my chances of ever coming back. And I'm like, oh, this is amusing. A website that thrives on rumor and people telling tales out of school doesn't like it when they're the ones being talked about. Give me a break. So yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say I'm never going to be welcome back in that neck of the woods. But for the time I was there, yeah, I had more fun than the law allows, and I loved doing the interviews. And if somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, we want you to do it again for us," I would be all for it. But for now, the comic industry's gotten a little too Game of Thrones for me. I want to stay out of the power struggle.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. On a wing and a prayer. So, in addition to my comic work and my animation, I also have written 3 books of short stories for Hannah Singer, Celestial Advocate. For those of you who wonder about, because I am a born-again Christian, but I emphasize I'm not your typical Christian, and these books are pretty much my mind writ large. The idea of it is, how you do something, you have people say, you're being naughty, you're being sinful, you're going to burn in hell. Well, Hannah is your defense attorney on the other side. And her whole job is to argue God's mercy and that you should not be punished for making mistakes because life is imperfect. Everyone goes through situations where they have to make a tough choice, and you should not be condemned for being put in that situation in the first place. And you can tell from this that the church advocates, the ones who argue for church doctrine, are pretty much the bad guys in this. And there are 3 collections of short stories, and the very first story, I wanted to throw down the gauntlet with readers right away so they knew what they were in for. So the very first story, she's defending a porn star and trying to get him into heaven. And it just goes from there. She argues against the devil himself in one. She defends Joan of Arc in another story. Her career has spanned 700 years. When it first starts, she's a peasant in England during the Black Plague, and she's an atheist. And that actually forms the crux of her story, is that the churches are trying to keep her out from getting into heaven just because she's an atheist. And she has to figure out a way to argue past that and earn her heavenly reward. Well, she does, but she doesn't want to claim her heavenly reward right away. She's like, well, wait a minute, I'm good at this. I can argue against this and stop these injustices. So she's put her heavenly reward on hold so that she can advocate as long as she can and hopefully help the next Hannah Singer. So it's all these stories where she's arguing these really tricky cases where you're not entirely sure which way it can go. There's one where she's defending a slave during the Turner Rebellion because the churches point out, well, the Bible says that slaves must obey their masters. He didn't send them to hell. And she has to come up with a way to argue against that and get him into heaven. So it's a lot of those questions when you sit there, you go, well, what would happen with this? What would happen with that? But instead of being told, well, just read the Bible and being ignored by your pastor, it actually tries to explore the issues. Do I always nail it? I don't know. But at the same time, I do give it a lot more serious thought than a lot of others do. One of my friends, she's also a devout Christian. She read the books and she said, oh, I love these. They're so much better than the Left Behind series. I'm like, oh, there's a compliment. Gee, I hope so. If I didn't get snaps from her, that would have been ugly. Yeah, yeah. If I didn't get snatched from her, that would have been ugly.
Wow.
Yeah, and those are available on Amazon, by the way. You can go on Amazon. You can order the physical books. There's 3 of them in the series. There's the first one is Hannah Singer, Celestial Advocate. This one is the second one, On a Wing and a Prayer, and the third one is Hope Springs Eternal. And Hope Springs Eternal, Hannah gets retried. Basically, the churches find a loophole to try and retry her and get her condemned again, and she has to figure out a way out of that. And for those of you who wonder what happens when someone actually does get cast, you see it in that book.
You know, I'd almost like to see that on Netflix.
I would, but the problem is that there's a reason I don't watch a lot of modern television, because there's a tendency to really corporatize things. You mentioned you're a fan of Red Dwarf. I don't know if you ever saw did you ever see the Red Dwarf US pilot?
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, I never watched any of the Red Dwarf US. I saw a few scenes of it and went, well, I think I will just save myself from a heart attack.
Yeah, there's a
on it still feels guilty about it.
Yeah, it's one of the things that goes through my mind. It's the reason that I self-publish so much of my stuff, because I see so many times where people take things and in the name of making them more accessible to an audience, they change the fundamentals of it, or even put in things that don't belong. Like when Peter Jackson was trying to get Harvey Weinstein to make Lord of the Rings. Weinstein wanted one of the hobbits to be killed in the first act, because that'll provide motivation for the other 3 to complete the mission. It's like they already have motivation. Yeah, and they just there's a tendency to go. It's also the reason why I do love me some Disney, but I'm not super. He's not the animator that I admire, because he had everything down so pat. You know, you have your prepackaged mannerisms, you have your prepackaged gestures. You do this, the audience reacts a certain way. It's like Woody Allen with his jazz standard soundtracks in his movies. It's like this song creates this reaction. This is what plays in the background. It's cheating. He's achieving through people's other experiences what he should be achieving through the lens. And that's
can I make a suggestion there? I don't know if you've seen Bistro Huddy over on TikTok, but get some wigs and stuff. Go watch what he does. You could do a bang up job what he does with this. I would watch that.
Okay, I'll
One
make
guy
a note to
playing
check
all
that
the
out.
parts.
But yeah, they have a tendency to try and solve some things, and the Red Dwarf pilot was a perfect example of that. The edginess, the people being allowed to be nasty, that was all taken away, and it became a very standard sitcom. Mm-hmm. And it just completely ruins everything, because we can't let it be what it is. We have to make it something that the audience will go for.
I heard one line about it. Somebody said that, oh, Red Dwarf, and they took out all the black people.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. It was. Yeah. It's the reason why because I know that Donna see me go on about this on Facebook about how much I love James Gunn, and in particular the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. The reason that especially Volume 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. And the reason is because it got a reaction out of me. Usually when I'm watching a movie or a TV show, I'm not really wrapped up in it. It's easy for me to review it from an objective standpoint, because I'm aware of the machinery going on behind the scenes. I'm aware, okay, they're doing this to add conflict. They're doing this to, establish, the final conflict between these 2 lifetime rivals. This is the 2-goal 3-act story structure. And it's very paint by numbers for me. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when Ego revealed that he was the one who killed Quill's mother, my jaw dropped. And I thought, I just had a visceral reaction to something I know is fiction, something I know isn't real, and I just reacted like it happened in front of my eyes. And also the Ravager funeral. I admit I cried during the Ravager funeral.
The Ravager funeral was good.
Yeah, and that's why I champion James Gunn so much, because I can't think of many other modern filmmakers that can create something that has me actually reacting on an emotional level to it. It's very rare when it happens, like the opening sequence of the movie Up, when it's all told without dialogue and you see the romance between Carl and Ellie. That was beautiful. And yes, it did make me misty-eyed, and that happens so rarely. Instead you just get everybody trying to out-spectacle you. The MCU has gotten more annoying to me because it's become more about the characters playing off each other rather than telling a story. Excuse me.
Oh,
but
you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just a little dry throat. I've been running a little too long. But yeah, that's why. It's also why I love that the Guardians movies just stuck to their own universe and didn't really cross over with the MCU. Because it's like, no, I don't want to have to watch 15 movies just to keep up with what's going on. Just tell me a story, will you?
Well, let's get your next one here because I want to see all of these before the end of the. No, I think did you skip? No, okay. This is the next one.
Oh, this one, as they say in the business, got some letters. This is Notice Me Senpai Batman. And this, I think, was also one of the things that got me in trouble, at least with a couple of people at Bleeding Cool, because I specifically went after Brian Azzarello and his attitude with it. What happened was they had just announced that they were making a movie based on Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. And everybody was wondering, well, that book's kind of thin. How are you going to make a feature-length movie out of it? And the way they did it was they completely destroyed the character of Batgirl. Bruce Timm has been trying to work his Batman Batgirl thing into things for ages now. I think it's creepy because he's like a father figure to her. I don't think that it should happen, but I'm not the one who makes the show. And with The Killing Joke, their idea of creating sympathy and understanding for Barbara Gordon was, first of all, to make her somebody who had no business being a crime fighter. She made so many stupid rookie mistakes, and she's all doing it all to impress Batman and become his butt bitch. And she quits being a crime fighter when he tells her she can't do it. But I'm sitting there in the theater watching it, and they get to the scene where they have sex on the rooftop. And as soon as they start kissing, no. And then she takes her top off, like, no. And I was out at that point. Well, the next day at San Diego Comic-Con, they had a panel discussing it. And Bruce Timm was still professional. He defended his choices. He thought it worked, everything. Azzarello was openly confrontational with one guy who was at the microphone. He's walking away, and Azzarello even called him a pussy. And I did not like what they did to the character of Batgirl, turning her into this weepy nothing who is no one without the love of a man in her life. And it was another one of those, well, don't get mad, make fun of it. So I made this Notice Me Senpai Batman thing because I had quipped, it's like, you know what it is? It's like one of those melodramatic animes where the girl's trying to impress her senpai. And I got it. That's the angle. And I made this cartoon where I just took the whole thing of Batgirl trying to impress Batman and ran with it and took it to its logical conclusion, complete with setting it in the Japanese high school, sort of Japanese dialogue with subtitles. I say sort of because it was all Google Translate. That's why in the credits it says, if you're trying to understand my Japanese, I pity you.
This is a full cartoon that you did?
Yeah, it was a 5-minute cartoon where I basically just unloaded all my frustrations and anger about what they had done with the Killing Joke movie, and specifically
is it on YouTube or anything like that?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Put the link in the bottom in the chat. We will see it.
Okay. Yeah. It's all right there. So
yeah, when we get to the end of this, we'll have Bill find the link, and then we'll all watch it. That'll be for dessert, okay?
Yeah, it's for a while. For a while, I had thought about doing a second follow-up, but it just my target had moved on by that point. The second follow-up I never intended for it to be a series because I wanted Barbara to be in the cartoon to be mentally unstable. I wanted you to watch her and go, you need to get your head on straight. I didn't want you to be rooting for her. So I didn't want to do it as a series because that would get people involved in starting to get on her side. It's like, no, I don't want that. I want them to continue to see this as wrong. I was going to do a follow-up because this was towards the end of Dan Didio at DC when creators were basically trying to make Harley and Ivy a canon lesbian couple. but he didn't want that. So you had like Amanda Connor just abstracting what was going on the pages, and just dialogue to try and convey things. And there was a statue of Harley and Ivy, and it was them in a sort of an embrace, but the ad copy was about these two lifelong friends. I'm like, they're not friends. Even during the days of Batman, the animated series, Paul Dini and Bruce Timm made it clear there was more going on than just friendship between these two. And Didio just would not allow it to happen. I was more shocked than anyone that the Harley Quinn animated series allowed the relationship to go in that direction. So the second one was going to be where Dean Didio, the dean of the school, is basically trying to fix up Harley with Bruce Wayne to try and make her straight. But because Barbara wants her senpai, she's trying to find a way to sabotage the relationship so that senpai will only notice her. And I started trying to gin up the storyline, and like 2 weeks later, Didio either left or got fired, whichever it was. So there was no, and they become a lot more accepting of the relationship now. So there was just no point in doing it. So I just abandoned it. But for a while,
yeah, do a bit where if she just had sex with a man, it'd straighten her out.
Well, to this day, there's still people who say that Harley and Joker are couple goals. And I'm like, no, that was an abusive relationship. That was Stockholm Syndrome. You should not be celebrating that. You know, Harley and Ivy, for whatever you may say, it's a very positive relationship. But Ivy is always building her up. She's very accepting of her. She's always helping her explore new facets, and she makes her a better person.
Oh, and they make great cosplay, especially at Christmas.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a very positive relationship. They just happen to be gay, but there's people who just will not accept that and want Harley not only a straight relationship, but in a relationship with an abuser. And I'm like, no. Come on, get a grip, people. Yeah, if you want a relationship with a touch of madness, Gomez and Morticia Addams are still the gold standard. Oh, Red Riding Hood. Okay. So this was a comic book miniseries that I made just for fun. As you can tell from the cover, this was basically my hat tip to Tex Avery and the Tom and Jerry cartoons, where I just wanted to do a cartoon or a comic book where the two characters, it's with Tom and Jerry, the conflict is automatic. The cat wants to catch the mouse wants to survive. You don't need to explain anything. You don't have to set anything up. You just put them together and watch them beat the living daylights out of each other. And with Red Riding Hood, what I decided was, I decided that it would be that Red and the Wolf were going to be rival couriers in medieval England. And the Wolf did not like this interloper encroaching on his turf, but she was not like a normal little girl. She was actually willing and perfectly capable of fighting back, as you can see from the cover. That's still one of my favorite things that I've drawn with all the combat going on. And that was all it was just 4 issues of 2 pages to introduce the characters, meet running into each other, and then off they go until the end. And,
I like the line style and the entire outlines and everything. It's very, very jerky and hard, and it just makes it look like action.
Yeah, that was the thing I wanted with the Wolf, was because Red is drawn in my typical style, although I did add an extra heavy line weight to her cape because that's her identity. But with the Wolf, I wanted something sharp and angular, something that looked very menacing and very out of place compared to everything else in the environment.
It looks like a robot.
Yeah, and that was what wound up playing off each other. And I thought it just came together so beautifully as I was drawing it. It was so much fun to do. And like I said, that was my little hat tip to Tex Avery and Tom and Jerry, and just the glory of the chase.
Well, if you'd like something that almost has the same flavor, if you've ever get the DVD Hoodwinked.
Oh, I saw it in the theater. I thought it was, well, the animation's cheap. It's like, it's not about the animation. It's about the writing, and it was hilarious.
And do you know how much they paid for that thing? Do you know what their budget was? $5,000.
Oh
How
yeah.
did they get Meryl Streep?
How did they get Patrick Warburton? Well, Warburton will pretty much star in anything
He'll do
if
anything.
it's funny enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If it's funny enough, he'll be it. So.
He's Yzma's partner. What do you want?
Uh,
These are great, Sailor. This is fantastic.
oh, thank you very much. Yeah, the comic books you can find on Kablam or Indie Planet because I self-publish them, but I go through Indie Planet because there just isn't enough. There just isn't enough demand for me to print up 1,000 copies and have to warehouse them and run around to shows and that. So you
Oh,
can
and the
find
other
them on
thing I want
Indie
to say
Planet.
real quick for the pricing on these is they're like, even if you put the retail price on it, they're only a couple dollars more than 80s prices. So if
Mm-hmm.
anybody wants a copy of this, run over and get it because the prices are good.
Oh yeah, Please support indies. The big two have basically spent the past 30 years trying to destroy indie comics and their audience and make themselves the only game in town, and they're succeeding. So we need to support what we love and bring it back. You know, if Steve Purcell woke up tomorrow and said, "I'm going to make a new Sam and Max comic and it'll be $5," I'd be like, "Give me 4. One to read, one for on trips, and the other 2 are going archived." So yes, please get out there. There's a lot of brilliant people, and I say that as somebody who, like I said, I started off on the indie scene when I first got into comics. I saw the right.
Sailor?
Pardon me.
Hello.
Hello.
Uh-oh.
Hello. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys still hear me?
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Anyway, but I saw the rise of indie comics. I saw the mini comics like Matt Fazell. Matt Fazell's a genius. I love that guy.
Oh,
I really got. Oh yeah, I actually met him at my the first time I went to the Chicago Comic Con in 1991. I met him at the underground indie section. It was a little portion set off from everything else appropriately enough, and they had people like Phil Foglio there, and Matt Fazell was there, and just greatest guy in the world. I just loved him. So yeah,
what you were
there's a
saying
lot of people.
about the market and how they're taking over. Remember this, that all these indies, all these new people, they're just going out into their own sales area, their own world, their own fans. They got huge followings. You know, go to the Bremerton Zine Fest, you'll see them. They're literally where our market can't see them because they've gone out and built whole new markets and whole new ways of being, and anybody can get in there and see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is that the indie field is where you actually see the growth happen, where you actually learn how to be a storyteller and how to tell a joke. Because I will put, like I said about James Gunn, I got a visceral reaction from him. James Gunn didn't go to film school. All these movies made by people who went to film school, I just sit there and they just kind of wash over me. Gunn started off at Trauma. So he learned from the beginning how to create something that was compelling and interesting and hooks the audience's interest. That's what you do in the indie field. I didn't put any images, unfortunately, but I did a twice a week comic strip called Stress Puppy. It was an office comedy, and it was basically my response to a lot of what I was seeing in comic creation at the time. Up until that point, I had tried doing comics a long time ago when I first got into them because I thought, hey, this looks like fun. The problem was that when I read comics, I mostly read newspaper comic strips. So I was used to people who drew in their own style. I was used to people like Berkeley Breathitt who did things his way. I was used to people doing minimalism or complex or whatever it was they wanted to do. Just as long as they remembered the first rule of comic strips, the joke is king. Anything that detracts from the joke has to go. So comic strips are probably your best way to also learn the craft of storytelling because you only have this narrow little area to get across the characters, the situation, the joke, the resolution. It will focus you like boot camp. So please, if you're looking to get started in practice, comic strips are the way to go. But as a result, I started drawing in my own style. Once again, I wasn't concerned with drawing in the Marvel style. I'm a cartoonist, not an illustrator. An illustrator is concerned about what things look like. A cartoonist is concerned about how things look. Well, that actually became the problem because in comic books, because by that point, the indie field was starting to constrict. We had the rise of Image and Valiant, and they were starting to redefine indie comics to being superheroes that weren't published by the big two. And slowly, everybody else was starting to die. We're going to leave Marvel and its assassination of Eclipse and First Comics out of this. That's too long a discussion to have. But yeah, that happened. And so I was pretty much rejected because, like I said, I was doing things in a way that made sense to me, not necessarily in a way that was house approved. And I gave up and I just focused on writing for like a couple decades. And what happened was I had seen the movie Over the Hedge. I thought it was okay. And they said, well, it's based on a comic strip. And I found some of the books because they didn't carry Over the Hedge in my area. And as I'm reading it, it relit the fire of how much fun I had doing a comic strip. So at the time I was with Hardway Studios, and I said, well, I'd like to do a twice weekly comic strip. And they were like, hey, it'll bring people to the site because it's consistent content. Go for it. And they only said that they didn't want me to use anything too graphic, nothing too sexual, no really hard bad words. But other than that, I had free reign to do whatever I wanted. And for 3 years, I did it twice a week, and I just had a gas. And the creation process of it was different. It always rankled me when people said, well, it's like Dilbert. It's like, no, it's not like Dilbert. It's completely different. Rafferty Daniels is the central character, who's a golden retriever. And the name Stress Puppy is actually kind of a misnomer, because in tech, a stress puppy is someone who thrives on just being completely overwhelmed. They're not happy unless everything is out of control. Whereas with Raph, it was just, he's a middle manager whose whole job is to try and keep all the different departments from throttling each other. And I gave him a fatalistic streak. Every storyline had at least one instance where he contemplated doing something to end his life. And so it did get dark at times too. But that was also part of it, was because I could actually show more of a realistic perspective of all these things that were happening. The most interesting character was Holly Faraday. Holly was a brown fox, and she was the CTO, and she was Raph's work buddy. The key thing about Holly was she was kind of my response to, at the time, when I was trying to develop it, I created her as a fox. I grew up with Disney, so funny animals were a thing for me. And I wanted her to be like my favorite kind of female character. Holly wears a dress, but she also wears stirrup pants underneath. So she's covered up, and she wears flats. She doesn't wear heels. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail. She doesn't show cleavage, and I intentionally drew her to have a normal sized bust. But the main thing about Holly was her personality, because Holly has a genius level IQ. And that's the reason why she's CTO. Originally, Dom, who's a penguin, was going to be the CTO as a nod to Linux. And I created Holly as basically kind of the wild card, just somebody who does all these crazy things around the office, but it wasn't really clicking. And I thought, make her CTO, because in the corporate environment, people don't really pay attention to the tech department. They just want to work, and they just want to be cheap. So they will make dumb decisions based on that. So the tech department doesn't really get a lot of oversight. And I thought, well, this would actually give her more of a chance to do things, because she doesn't have a supervisor watching her every move. And I plugged her in, and lightning in a bottle. It just, boom. Because the key to writing Holly is that she is a mad scientist. She has the intelligence and the ability to make things happen, and doesn't see a reason why she shouldn't. And that's actually part of what makes her play off Raph so well, because their starting perspectives on things are quite similar, but how to approach the problem is where they diverge wildly. And Raph may have been the star of the strip, but Holly got the best lines, and Holly was the breakout character. Everyone loved her, not only because of her perspective. She went to Catholic school, so I was always cracking jokes about her bad Catholic upbringing. You know, things like her bragging that she was undefeated at depth charge all through Catholic school, which some people figured out what that was. At one point, she cracks a joke about Jesus saves and takes half damage. The best was a Christmas story that I did called Loose Cannons. It was based on a real incident where a company made these calendars to try and be inclusive of as many spaces.
I do have to do a time hack here. We're almost at the end of the talk, because it's so interesting. It's so much fun. But and this will all make us want to go get this stuff now, because the story sounds fascinating. But in the few minutes we got left, I don't know if it's even possible to see your little video, but we're probably going to have to wrap it up here pretty quick because we're getting to the end of the hour and it is a Saturday. But oh, is he going to go find the link? I'll bet he's going to go find the link. But we staged this for an hour, and that way people have got their schedule all set. So I think he's actually going to go get the. He's going to go get that.
Okay, yeah, I'll send it in the Facebook link real quick. Sign to more.
Yeah, let's see. I think I already had.
Can you do chats in your Zoom function? You can put the link in there, or you can put. Oh, you're going into Messenger. Okay.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm moving. Yeah. Sign to more. It's Latin. It means without fear, without insecurity. Abditive case, of course.
There we go.
So yeah, if you're wondering
what this is the good stuff. So which is the one that we're supposed to be looking for here?
Keep going down. Keep going down. It's more towards the bottom. It was one of the first ones I did. Yeah, it was one of the first ones I did. So keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
You've been busy.
There it is. There, you just passed it. Go up one little bit. There it is on the left.
There it is, the Batman one. Notice me. Oh God, no! This is going to be a hoot. Here we go. I told you this is going to be for dessert.
I'm loving getting a live reaction out of this. I always love getting a live reaction. Okay, I'll keep it down.
Nata ga tadashi desu. Watashi tashi wakore o shite wa gamasen. Watashi hatisha kazoku ni umie o motarashimashita. Watashi tashi no warui koi o suganu shiri itashimasu. Tashi wa anata o sukudesho sebai. Watashi wa sore go shomisu. Watashi wa kare o bikatsuru koto o shomisu. Kare o shinju koto o shomisu. Watashi ga kare o shote iru koto o shomisu. Boku no naniga ga uete iru. Watashi ga kishomi narimasu.
That's a hoot.
And there we go.
That was a hell of a presentation there, Sailor. You just put in a heck of an hour. I don't think we've ever had so much stuff in 1 hour.
Well, I'd be happy to make a part 2 at some point later on if you guys got the time. But
If
yeah,
you guys
this
get
is
another if you get another project, we always need guest speakers. All kinds of crazy things happen during the meetings, mostly because we're amateurs when it comes to broadcasting. Bill and me, we should form our own meeting group called Fuck Ups. Whoops, sorry, is that going in? Anyway.
You've already heard me swear. I've already ruined the pool.
But anyway, Sailor, that was a wonderful, wonderful presentation, and I'm certainly happy that you joined us for the Saturday for an hour of absolutely very interesting presentation.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm glad we all had fun tonight. This really was a blast.